Hello and welcome again to the Complete Agent podcast, where each week we aim to educate and entertain our industry. I'm joined as ever by my co-hosts Ian Storey and David Warburton. Unfortunately, neither myself or Ian were able to make it on holiday this week, so Dave joins us from somewhere sunny abroad. It's your turn, Dave. How's your week been?
Yeah, really good, mate. Thank you. I had a good week prior to coming away. But yeah, apart from that, mate, it's been pretty chilled, I'll be honest with you. We had a couple of really good deals last week that I'm still in the process of tying up. So as I'm wandering around the pool and enjoying a few pina coladas, I am tying up deals. That's what us estate agents do, isn't it? We never switch off. So, yeah, I've got a couple of good things going on while I'm away. But ultimately, I'm trying to have a bit of downtime. So it's been a lovely week, mate. Thank you.
About you, Storey?
Good week. Yeah, good week. I was sort of had a bit of a wobble towards the end of last week and last weekend, just because we've really swelled with new listings and it felt like nothing was selling. But then we've sort of agreed five, I think, so far this week. And some really excellent listings. I know I messaged you two boys of the week, but we've got some superb listings coming on. All pretty sellable stuff, I think, sort of over $1 million, all on the right kind of fees. Phil's doing really well. I think we've recruited for one of our vacancies as well. So
nice.
We've got a girl joining us. She's confirming back today, but I think she'll go for it. Currently works for another local estate agent. I think she'll fit the team.
Brilliant.
So that's good. We had a new creative person start joining Holly, because Holly's too busy to cope with everything that we're putting on. So that's all good, you know, all good. Yeah.
What was the position for, Ian?
We were advertising for 4 roles, Dave. First one was part-time creative person to help Holly. So that's brochure design, social media output, and everything else that we do. We're advertising for a sales progressor. We haven't found that person yet, but we've got plenty of time to find that person. And then we were advertising for a full-time team member in the office, like an office rock, to do emails, calls, outbound booking valuations, buyer work, that kind of stuff, because we lost Nicola earlier in the year. And then the other role is a viewing specialist, another couple of viewing specialists.
Nice. Happy days. Shall I tell you about my week? Or
no, we're not bothered.
No, to be fair, you never are, to be fair, but I'm going to tell you for the benefit of the listeners.
He's so excited. Ian's really excited to get to today's topic, isn't he?
Yeah, I know. What's it about today? Right. So I'm just in the midst of putting together a deal with 2 people in the chain. So a double header, not to be confused with anything else. One is 730, the other one is 1.3. So £2 million deal in one. Obviously, tasty chunky fees there, which is nice. All good buyers as well. Listings, to be honest, for myself personally, have been pretty quiet. I had a massively good run at the back end of last month. Listed probably the best part of 6-7 million quid personally, plus everything else the team had, which is again probably double that. Kind of similar to what you were saying, Storey, in terms of listings are kind of swelling, and not a lot was kind of walking out the door, whereas the last 10 days of the month, just all of a sudden everyone seemed to wake up, despite all that crap in the news about interest rates and banks putting their rates up. People just thought, you know what, sod it, get on with it. And we had a record month. I think we ended up on about 150 grand in the end for 1 month, which is incredible. So anyway,
incredible.
I was going to do that myself, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to be mature. This is a mature podcast for mature people who want to talk about estate agency. And speaking of which, this week we are going to talk about you, Mr. Ian Storey. So we're going to tell Ian Storey's story about how he came from 999 to selling houses all over Cheshire at the upper end of the market. So where should we start, Storey? Where do you want to go? Take some beginning.
They're called origin stories, aren't they?
Yeah, I think we should start where you actually started, mate. I think you've got a great journey. Yeah. I've actually heard this several times because you've been on quite a few podcasts, haven't you? But it's a
can
really
I just
great
say, Dave,
story.
can you keep moving your laptop screen around while we're doing this? Because it's not distracting at all.
Is this distracting as well? There you go. Whoa.
Oh,
Well,
no.
just
Oh,
so pan down quickly. I mean, the video. This isn't going to be a video podcast, but just for the
Will
benefit
it some?
of Ian, where are you?
I'm in Tenerife at the Hard Rock Hotel, and it is beautiful.
Nice. There we go. Right. Anyway, that aside, let's get into your origin story then. So, where did you start?
So I was going to start by talking about how I arrived in a state agency, because it's a common story that a lot of people tell, which is that I basically fell into it by accident. So I went to college to do university to do landscape architecture, switched to doing building surveying because my mate was doing it and he was successful and had plenty of money and had a nice lifestyle. So I thought, well, I'll do that. Did that for a bit, but I'm definitely not a studier. I am definitely a grafter, but I'm not a studier at all. So university didn't suit me. I couldn't be bothered doing all the work, basically. So I basically left and went to work for a surveying company as like an apprentice and did university part-time. This chap, Jonathan, who was a great guy, he owned what was becoming a massive buy-to-let investment company in Blackpool. So I think they ended up with something like 350 semi-detached houses between 2002 and 2007. So, JK, you're going to say something? Sorry.
I'm going to say total combined portfolio value, 10 grand.
They were buying up 3-bed semis for like 100 grand, 120 grand on with Paragon mortgages, where they were just, self-certified, borrow what you want. And so I was working for them in the early noughties, and I really, really enjoyed it. Buying a property, they do it up, rent it out, buy another one, do it up, rent it out. And at that point, I never had any of my own, but I really, really enjoyed just general property.
Yeah.
And I was at that point an absolute party animal lad, and I was forever going out. And David Tinsley, who still has Lytham Estate Agents now, basically they were friends. Him and the surveyor were friends, and I was moved over to work for David instead of being fired. Basically, the surveyor chap said to me, "Oh, my friend's looking for a job. Would you?" So they sort of moved me to Lytham Estate Agents, where I carried on my lifestyle, and David really, really looked out for me, and I'm still in touch with him now. And basically, he didn't get rid of me when he could have got rid of me, and he really sort of kept giving me chance after chance after chance when I just didn't turn up, pull sickies, because I was just going out all the time. And I'm very, very grateful for David that he did that, because obviously he sort of gave me the stepping stones to where I am today. And Lytham Estate Agents was and still is, they sell the majority of the higher end properties in Lytham. So for those of you that don't know Lytham, it's a posh, sort of higher end town on the southern end of the Fylde coast. So you've got Blackpool. It's not far from Blackpool at all, really, but it's a complete world away. Sort of terrace houses are 500 grand, this sort of thing. Really nice area. And I worked for David for 2.5 years. And then someone else who I worked with at Lytham Estate Agents had an idea of setting up an estate agency in a neighbouring town. I managed to get my foot in the door with her, and we went 50-50 on the new estate agency. My dad lent me 20 grand. Her husband put 20 in. And we started St Anne's Estate Agents in 2006.
Okay.
So, as we all know, 2006, everything was hunky-dory. Everything was selling. The market was flying. We started a lettings business as well. And we had a fantastic 18 months. And then, of course, the world fell out of the market.
Can I just ask quickly, just on that, and what I'm interested in, and one thing we didn't cover actually on our previous pods, is where does all your business come from at that stage?
So the majority of it came from Jill, who I started the company with because she was so well connected.
Okay, the referral and recommendation, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we had a shop. So we had a shop on the high street.
Yeah.
So obviously we got business from there. And we were called St Anne's Estate Agents. St Anne's was the town, which it worked quite well. But she knew a lot of people. So I just sort of brought enthusiasm and hard work and,
No, cool.
legendariness. So, no, joking. So we ran that for a while. We pretty much ran that into the ground, that business. I had no idea what I was doing at all business wise. We were paying ourselves a salary from the start of the company, basically. So that was a huge learning curve for me. But so at the point when we nearly went in, we nearly ran it into the ground, and Jill decided to leave at that point because it was going nowhere. And then another business partner came in. Her dad had some money, and then me and Emma ran the company together. It was 50-50. We still had lettings, and we really grew lettings throughout that period. So we got to about 130 managed lettings in about 3 years, something like that, 4 years. And that really kept us going through the hard times of 2008, 2009, when sales were hard to come by. And that we changed the name of the company. I can't think why we did that now, but we changed the name of the company to County Estate Agents. Opened a second office, which was a bad idea because that didn't work and that cost us loads of money. And then that company nearly went under as well. It didn't, but it nearly did. And so many learning curves throughout that time.
Can I just ask a couple of questions on that as well? Because I'm personally interested, and I think other people would be interested as well. So, what made you open a second office, and why did it fail?
We opened a second office. So that area is known as Lytham St Anne's. You have Lytham, but it's actually 2 towns. It's called Lytham St Anne's, but it's actually 2 towns. Lytham, the posh bit, St Anne's, which used to be the posh bit and is now not really as posh. And in between, there's a little village called Ansdell. And we opened a second office in Ansdell. We did that, because Emma's dad owned the shop. Right. And did us a deal on the rent. That was a bad move for me, getting involved with other people in my main business. I'd never do that again in my core business. Because, you lose control. He owned the shop. So that's why we opened it, because he owned it. Yeah. And also it was getting us closer to living where the higher price homes were.
Right. I think as well, going back to that point, what year was that in?
2009.
Yeah. So I think the high street presence was important, wasn't it?
10.
A lot more.
It was what?
The high street presence was a lot more important, I think, back then. Or at least that's what we thought.
Yeah, massively,
That's what we thought.
Yeah, that's what we thought.
Yeah.
But also, social media had only just got going, hadn't it?
Exactly.
So the reason that you don't need a shop now is because of social media, isn't it? Mainly, I think. Because you can promote yourself.
Yeah.
You've got a virtual shop window, haven't you?
Yeah.
Partly. But anyway. So that business was a 1% high street agent. Average price of property we sold was probably 200 grand, 250 grand.
Fees?
Yeah,
what fees were you getting?
Or what, 1%?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I went to one that was 300, I was absolutely buzzing for the rest of the week. £3,000 fee. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it walking out with that. And that we actually at that point as well set up the Association of Estate Agents on the South Fylde, and we all got together, and it was a good idea in principle. Really, some of the old boy estate agents got us all together and said, "Look, we should all charge a minimum fee."
Just a cartel.
Well, turned out that's called a cartel, so we stopped it. But apparently, a cartel is where you charge the same, or where you charge a maximum. There was some sort of legality he reckoned we could get around it. Anyway, it kind of worked, but obviously not everyone did it, and it all sort of fell apart. But we tried to get 1.5% for quite a while. And I remember a few that I went to where I managed to get 1.5 and thinking, my God, this is absolutely outstanding. 250 grand house on 1.5%. So that went. So County went well for quite a few years. We had a good few years. We had so many lettings properties and all the tenant fees. When you could charge tenant fees, I think we used to charge 150 quid a tenant per tenant. So if there was 3 tenants renting, which we had quite a lot of in St Anne's, students and stuff, you'd be getting 450, three to £500 per tenancy application. And me and Emma would just, we would just take that out as divvies. It was great on top of. So if you were doing 4 or 5 lets a week, it was really good income. And your 20s, I was in my mid to late 20s. It was brilliant. It was really, really, really good time. But I was still going out a lot. So my focus wasn't really on business. It was on fun. But I suppose in your 20s. Yeah, that's pretty common, isn't it, in your 20s?
100%.
I think what's interesting here
that carried on until I met Al. And when I met Al, just before I met Al, I decided to move to Manchester because I'd never been to university properly. So I moved to Manchester and lived the sort of student life, but commuted back up to St Anne's every day. So I used to drive up to St Anne's in Manchester, drive back to Manchester and live the sort of young 20s student life. And then it was around 2014, 2015, me and Al moved back to Polton, to Blackpool area in 2013. 2012, 2013. So I was still running county with Emma, and then I decided to set up a separate estate agency in a different area called iMove.
Oh.
And I did that because I thought that was the way that it was going, because of Purple Bricks and all these other fixed fee, agencies that were coming in. So I agreed with Emma that I'd start it as well as having county, but it was in a separate area. There was no real crossover. Started iMove, and that was the first time. So that was in 2015. That was the first time that I'd had a business that was just mine.
Mm-hmm.
Because prior to that, I'd always been with a business partner. So it was brilliant because everything I did, it was the first time I'd ever had my own business that was only mine. So I worked, like I still do now, worked very hard, put the hours in, got a great reputation. It was going really, I was really getting good traction. I ended up selling my share of county to Emma, focusing just on iMove. We had a brilliant year. I mean, I say brilliant. It's not brilliant compared to Storey standards, but brilliant for the time. 2017, 2018, turned over a really good amount of money, enabled me to buy my first house in Cheshire. And that went well up until a point. So as we discussed, I think it was on last week's pod, we swelled with listings there. So we had one point in iMove where we had something like 75 properties sold STC, another like 50 available on the market, all on 995 or 1295 fees.
Ouch.
And it felt at the time brilliant. Because like you were saying last week, I think it was Dave, you were saying, people say to you, bloody hell, I see your boards everywhere. My God, you must be absolutely flying. How good, good on you. And at the time you're thinking, yeah, this is brilliant. I've got my boards everywhere. I'm selling loads of houses. But that quite quickly became apparent that was not a sustainable business model. So, but I also had a lettings business with iMove. So I'd started another lettings business when I started iMove, and I got that to about 130 managed lets within a couple of years.
Decent money coming in, isn't it?
Yeah. So I sort of hooked up with a portfolio landlord who had a load of houses. And then, just by doing what I did, I was one of the first agents in the area to do stuff on Facebook. So I really got the name out, and because the sales business tanked because of, it's not sustainable as it's selling all those houses on cheap fees.
Nah.
You need so many staff and it's just a nightmare. But the lettings kept us going. So we and I had them set up as two limited companies on purpose from the start. They were two separate entities. The sales business we passed on to an estate agent locally who screwed us over, didn't pay us the fees they promised they paid us, and then they ended up folding. So that went the way of the dodo. But the lettings business kept going. And I ended up, when we moved to Cheshire, I ended up selling the lettings business to a friend of mine who has taken it from strength to strength. And he still has iMove lettings up in Polton. And he's bought like multiple other agencies now. And I think he's probably got 300 managed lets or something now.
Nice.
So that's quite a nice end to the story. But we decided, it was me who drove it really, to move to Cheshire in 2017.
It's a couple of interesting things there, Ian. I think for you, obviously with me and JK, we both came from that corporate background and then went in to start our own business. You've obviously just done it from day one, really, and just learned as you go. So I've got some questions. There's two things. One, obviously, you've gone from sort of doing percentage fees and doing quite well when you set up, and you've reversed and gone to low fixed fees. But then the other question I think would be for anybody who's listening, who's perhaps maybe self-employed or is thinking about going self-employed or is thinking about setting up their own business, would you recommend just doing it from day dot without experience?
No.
Okay, so a couple of things there. Talk to me about that. Talk to me first of all then about that.
Yeah, so I have always, I think, I now realise I'm sure I must have ADHD. I've not been diagnosed with it, but I've always just been someone who just does it and don't think about it. And I do it and then ask for apologies later. Someone said in my group last night, didn't they? And obviously there's lots of pros to that, but there are some cons. So I've always just been someone who just does it and see what happens and give it a go. And, I'm quite optimistic. I know I'll make it work somehow kind of attitude. So I did that when I was 25. So when I was 25, I went self-employed in an industry that I'd only worked in for 2 years. Just because I loved it, and obviously I believed in myself. But it definitely took longer to get to a successful position than I think it would have done if I'd had a couple of years' experience at a corporate.
Yeah.
Because I had no training. David at Lytham Estates was brilliant to me. I'd taken nothing away from him. He really stuck by me, but I didn't have any training. I was just sort of learning as I was going along. So I would definitely say to anyone, I would go and either work for a corporate or I'd go and work for, an independent that has good training. Like this girl who I interviewed last night who's hoping to join Storeys, she's done 2 years at corporate. And I like that because she's got the basics, hasn't she?
Yeah. And then the other part of it, you reversed it, didn't you? So you were doing percentage fees. You'd set up on your own doing percentage fees, and then you reversed it with your new company and went to low fixed fee model. So what drove that?
Yeah. Well, the rise of the online estate agents drove that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Yopa, Purple Bricks, eMove, UMove, whatever they were all called, they made me think that that's the way it was going.
I think knowing you the way I know you now, obviously being very impulsive that you are, I think I'm probably going to be right in saying there wasn't much of a plan when you set it up. It was just go and list as many houses as you could.
There still isn't really.
Yeah. But
the thing is, though, you say that though, like Dave, obviously you're Mr. Plan, aren't you? Like you are Mr. Plan, Mr. Write Down. And I just think, I mean, don't get me wrong, you're a massive action taker and you've got, successful businesses. But I just think sometimes, like some of the people we speak to about like, joining a complete agent, for example, and just people generally that we've met, they can spend years thinking out and trying to plan the perfect business and doing nothing about it. Whereas sometimes you just need, like, I'm probably guilty of this, of just throwing myself in head first and figuring it out as I go, which is, again, if you do things by the book, it's probably not the way it should be done, but it's worked out right for me. And I just think sometimes if it feels right, do it. If it doesn't, then don't. And I think if you trust your instincts and just go with it, what have you got to lose?
Yeah. The plan. Yeah.
Your house,
a lot of money.
livelihood.
The difference now, we'll come on to Storeys, won't we? But the difference with Storeys is the level of fee that I've managed to create the company to be able to earn, and no office and various other ways of outsourcing stuff, and there's lots of things that I've now learned about how to do it properly, how I think it should be done properly. So
then iMove then. What point? So iMove gets sold.
iMove Lettings.
iMove Lettings
sold.
Yeah,
20.
Sorry, beg your pardon.
So basically, we moved to Cheshire, and I commuted. We had a good amount of staff in iMove, so I didn't really have to. I only had to go sort of 2-3 days a week. So I used to commute back up there 2-3 days a week, and then I would be managing the lettings book from Cheshire, which worked well for a while. And once we moved to Cheshire, Alex's parents, who lived in a lovely house in one of the best villages, their family home, a sort of 2,500 square feet cottage with like half an acre. It was lovely property. And her stepdad, Bill, said to me, would you sell it for me under iMove? Because, he was of the impression, he isn't now after Storeys, but he was of the impression that as long as it's on Rightmove, it doesn't matter. So I said, yes. Of course I said, yes. It's my in-laws. They've looked after us. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. I won't charge you anything. I'll put it on Rightmove. That was the first place I ever did a property video. It was on that house.
Is that video still around?
Say that again.
Does that video still exist?
Yeah, it does actually.
I'd love to see that. Like, if there's any difference between iMove Ian Story and Storeys Ian Story.
Huge difference. I mean, it was about 3 stone heavier as well, so there's definitely a big difference. So we marketed that in Cheshire under our Blackpool company. And obviously I was doing all the viewings on it, and I'd go and do a viewing, and I'd say to the person, how are you getting on? What sort of position are you in? Where are you? Where are you up to? And they'd say, oh, well, I've got £1 million place up the road, equestrian place, that I don't need to sell to buy this. And this was probably 600 grand.
Yeah. And
I'd have someone else come in and say, yeah, we've got a place just up the road in Hertford. It's probably worth 900 grand, and we're going to put that on the market to buy this. And I remember going to that house thinking, I need to be doing this here.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be doing it up in Blackpool. I should be doing it here.
Yeah.
So we very, very quickly started Storeys. So within 2 months, whilst the conveyancing was going through on my in-laws' house, we started Storeys.
Nice.
So did website, brand, got it on Rightmove. I just found the money, borrowed it. Did I borrow it, or did I stick on a credit card? I don't know. I just found the money to do it. switched the listing from iMove to Storeys.
Yeah.
So we had a Cheshire listing sold, desirable village, 600 grand house.
Yeah.
And it went from there. I got a second listing off the back of it. You know how it goes. One of the viewers had a house to sell, and I got the third listing off the back of that. And so this was 2019. By the end of 2019, we probably sold 5 houses,
Yeah.
something like that. I was very selective from the start. So I was determined to not sell any shit. So I had loads of people calling me that I turned down. We don't really get that now. But I had loads of people calling me that we turned down. During that year, we were also disposing of iMove lettings up in Blackpool. So I was selling that to my mate. So we had a bit of a twitchy bum period where our parents were like, oh, are you sure this is the right thing? Our parents made us rent in Cheshire for a year before we sold our house up in Polton.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to be sure that it was the right thing for us to do. So we did that. Obviously, it's turned out to be very much the right thing to do. So we had that period where we were disposing of the lettings company, and Storeys had about 4 or 5 listings. But I was turning away loads of low-end stuff on purpose to make sure that we developed a reputation at the higher end. And Storeys started there.
So the origins then, so that you were selling that house and thought, yeah, this is what. Where did? Because obviously you come from doing iMove, and you decided that you needed to do video. You obviously saw that video was the right thing to do and the way to go. What made you level up like your offering? What all of a sudden made you go, right, I need to do professional photography. I need to do this. I need to do that. Where did that come from?
From Perry
Power.
So I did Perry's course, his boot camp he would know better than me. I did the first ever boot camp that he did. I can't think what it was now.
Was that 2017? Is that what I met you and Alex at ages ago?
Yeah, was that 2018?
I would say 2017, 2018 maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It was the first one that he did. And I think I got it for like 250 quid, some ridiculous deal. I mean, it was the best money I've ever spent.
Yeah.
And so we did that whilst we still had iMove. So I was starting to educate myself then at that point. There's a bit of echo, Dave.
Is there?
Mm-hmm. Also, I don't think you've got your mascara on. Your eyes look very
very
pale.
And he's on mute. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks for your input, Dave. So Perry Power gave me the initial impetus to have a marketing plan, to charge better fees, to justify the fees, to negotiate much better, to have much better quality marketing. So he gave me the initial impetus for it all. And it just happened to coincide at the same time that we'd started Storeys. So the two married together really, really well. So because I had the lettings business in Blackpool that was giving us an income, that was probably giving us £5,000 a month, I could afford at Storeys to not take any money out. So I paid for all the videos myself up front. I paid for all the photos myself up front. We didn't charge marketing fees then. I paid everything myself up front.
Yeah.
And started pumping the shit out of Facebook. And I learnt initially a lot of stuff from Chris Watkin as well, with regards to what to do on Facebook and how to not sell.
Yeah. Well, you were doing the listings for other agents' houses, weren't you? I think you before, like,
do that top 30 streets and all these things that Chris teaches, which I think when you're brand new to the area, they're good things to do when you've nothing else to do.
What else are you going to do if you've got nothing else? You've got no listings to sell. You're either door knocking or putting yourself out there, aren't you?
I did door knocking as well. I door knocked. I still remember the first house, Simon and Lynn Woodward, that I successfully got on a door knock. They were on with an agent that's still going now. Really impressed the pants off Lynn.
What did you say?
Really, really well.
That's obviously all about delivering value to people listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
So there'll be people that are listening to this going, I'm never going to door knock a house. Or I might tell people on Facebook I door knock a house, but I've never actually door knocked a house personally. What did you say? So that's your first house. You need it. I mean, I've done door knocking for years. I haven't done much recently, but I know what it's like. But how did that conversation go, and what did you say? So that house that you first door knocked?
Yeah, knocked on the door. Lynn answered. Didn't know she was called Lynn then. And I just said, and before I knock on the door, I check it out on Rightmove, see how long it's been on the market, see what date it came on, ask how it's going. And I could see she'd been on the market for months. And don't forget, this was 2019, so it's quite a flat market. It wasn't like 2020, 2021. And she had a cottage with a garden that was detached with a lane going through the middle, a public lane and stuff. So it was quirky. I just knocked on the door and I said, hi, Lynn. I said, hi.
How do you know my name?
I said, hi. I said, hi, I'm Ian Storey. I've just started a new estate agency locally, and I just thought I'd ask how it's going. And she said she would have said something along the lines of, well, it's not that good, really. We've not really had any offers. And I managed to arrange myself an appointment to go in for a coffee with her and her husband, Simon. And obviously won her round. She took it off them. We relisted it, sold it 20 grand over in 2019.
20 grand over the price the other agent had, or the 20 grand over you?
No, I think they had it at something like 4. I can't think what they had it on at, but we realigned the price, sold it over. She was happier than you can possibly imagine, and she moved off to Hay on Wye for her retirement, and that went really well. But that gave us one of the first sort of 2 or 3 stories, excuse the pun, locally about people we'd helped, and then we then used that and replicated that. And like I was saying on our group last night, I've always been one to put boards up everywhere. So if I get a listing, it gets 4 boards. Promote the hell out of it. It really, really works.
Yeah, fair play. Nice. Okay.
So just on that then, Ian, did you do a fee deal on any of these early listings?
Yeah, I did the first. Well, my first one was free because of my in-laws.
Yeah.
I mean, then the next, something like the next 4 I did on 1%.
Yeah.
The next 3 or 4, the first 3 or 4 I did on 1%. I can picture the houses now. And then I sold one, probably 4th or 5th house I sold was up in Storey. So again, I had lots of time on my hands at this point. This lady came to offer on a house that we were selling. She had a house to sell up in Storey on, I can't think, there's a massive development up in Storey, quite prestigious.
Buckshaw.
Bit.
Is it Buckshaw?
Buckshaw Village. Okay, Buckshaw Village. And there's an area of Buckshaw Village that's like the poshest bit of Buckshaw Village. And her house was on that bit of the development. So I said, well, I'll sell it for you. She was like, oh, you sure? I said, it's no problem. I'll drive to Storey and I'll sell it for you. So I did. Got it on, I think it was probably 450 grand. And I did 1.5% on that. And it had gone so well with her on the one she wanted to buy in Cheshire that she was fine to pay that. And then I did a few at 1.5. And then after a conversation with Chris Kiriakou, who I always remember for this, we went to 2%.
So we were doing that conversation. Yeah, so I think that I know that conversation because I had that conversation with him as well about differentiating between being 1.5% and being 2%. And it's not just about it's perceived value, isn't it? And perception of value. If you're you say it's your thing. What was the conversation?
Yeah. So Chris, I mean, Perry's always charged 2%, so I had that in the back of my mind. But just changing your mindset to believe you can charge it is the key thing. And so this was 2019, David. Answer your question. We'd done a couple at 1%, a couple at 1.5, and then I can remember where I was. I was sat in the car park at a McDonald's drive-through, and I spoke to Chris Kiriakou, and he said to me, "Don't charge close to 1% because you look too similar to the other agents." He said, "By charging 2, you are telling that client that there's some sort of difference there. There's some reason why you're so much different. So if everyone around you charges 1%, don't charge 1.25 or 1.5. You're too close to them." He said, "Go higher, start a conversation." And I just did. And again, it's just another example of me just doing it and seeing what happens. So I just started charging 2%. And of course, some people didn't want to pay it. And in the early days, when you're less well known, less people want to pay it because you've less of a track record. But I held firm with it and lost a few, held firm with it, kept charging it. And then it's got us to the stage to where we are now, where I'm sort of thinking, can we charge 2.5?
Amazing. Yeah. I think there's a couple of things there that I find quite interesting. So we get a lot of people coming to us, don't we, at the Complete Agent now, who've got these mid-range brands or lower-end brands or just lettings, and they're saying to us, how do I get started? And obviously we've done the mini-series, which if you've not listened to that, I would highly recommend you go back and look at it and start it from the beginning. But I think it's interesting that 2 things. One, you did do a few fee deals because you are Ian Storey 2%. Everybody thinks that is just the way you've always been, perhaps. But I don't think there's any harm in the early days, if it gets you going, to do a 1%. Dare I say it, a 0.75%. If it's a high value home, the key is present it properly. Don't cut corners just because it's a 0.75 deal or a 1% deal. You've got to do it how it's going to be forevermore. And the second thing is, you obviously travelled to go and get one of the listings. I think one of the guys in our group yesterday suggested, should he tweak his not on the market letter because he's going into a new area? And we were saying, you're overthinking it, just get it out there no one really cares where you are. They care what you can do and what you look like and what you're going to do for them. So if you do have to nip out of area to go and get a test case, do it. Just absolutely do it.
I did that on so in 2019, I did more on LinkedIn than I do now. Probably again because I had more time. But so in 2019, I did more on LinkedIn. I was sharing like advice videos, and I can still picture it all now. I was doing advice videos on LinkedIn. I got contacted by this guy called Andrew, can't think of his surname. And he said to me, "Hi, Ian, hope you're well. Would you travel? I've got a client of mine. He was an accountant. I've got a client of mine with a really nice house in North Wales. And it was called Sawton House. And it been on the market with Savills for 3 years. And he said, do you think you might be able to, is there anything you can go and do?" And they had it on the market at something like 1.6 million. It was just silly money. North Wales is North Wales. There's lots of nice big houses, but it's North Wales. So there isn't a very big market for them. And I managed to get hold of the telephone number of the owner, Ruth. This was 2019. Bearing in mind, this house is 50 minutes away from my house. And I said to Ruth, "Can I come and see you?" Got on with her really, really well. Suggested loads of decoration changes, sent in our decorator to her so she could have it all decorated, styled it all. I used to drive there every time to do a viewing, so it's 45 minutes each way just to go and do a viewing. But the house is 1.25 million. So Storeys had a 1.25 million pound house. That was all I was bothered about. I would have driven 3 hours to go do a viewing. And I managed to sell it just before COVID. And I sold it to a guy called Matt, whose company owned a big house building company in the Northwest. And I'm still in touch with Matt now. And Matt had a house to sell further up the road, 900 grand, North Wales. Beautiful slate built property. And so I got myself in the door there, managed to go and see Matt, and I charged Matt 2%. Matt was a bit taken aback by it, but I was firm with it because he'd been impressed with me on the viewing at Sawton House. And anyway, got that on the market, managed to agree a sale on his to this doctor, and Matt was buying Sawton House off me. That was March 2020.
Oof.
Does anybody know what happened in March 2020?
No, remind me.
So, bearing in mind, Matt was quite a decent sized house builder. Like they build like 500 houses across the Northwest every year. COVID hit. I just agreed my first of £1 million sale. Matt was not in a good place. So I thought, no. I thought this is going to fall here because of COVID. Anyway, we rode it through. House building came back, didn't it? Had the housing market took off with a bang 8 weeks later, and everything was fine. But the moral of the story there is that I drove to Chorley to put a 400. And by the way, Chorley for me is 45 minutes, and I drove to North Wales, which is 50 minutes, to put on decent value houses to prove that we could do it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth doing.
I would massively worth doing. And then since then, we've sold 2 others in North Wales. One was £1 million, one was 1.4, all on good fees. So yeah, that was a really good move at the time. I mean, I can recommend that to anyone.
Great. I mean, I've done it, and we've recently just gone into a new area, and we've sent out our not on the market letters, and we just tweaked the wording ever so slightly, but showed examples of houses that we do in other areas, and it's literally made no difference whatsoever. I've picked up some great listings in that area off one letter.
Yeah.
So it just shows they're not bothered so much about where you are. I think that becomes the educational process once you get through the door. But get yourself through the door, put in the hard yards at the start, go out of town if you have to. Yeah. And if you do have to do fee deals, you won't hear me say that often, but if you're just starting out, just to get going, once you get your 3 or 4,
you need social proof, don't you?
You do need social proof.
Yeah, and I think it's bollocks to say that you can't do a few 1% because then you're then a 1% agent forever. That's complete bollocks because I've proved that. Yeah, I've proved it. You just got to be firm with people that. If they know, if they're sort of friends with other people who want to sell, you say, well, that was an introductory fee. We've now proved
business
that we're worth
it. We're proven business now. Yeah, we've got a track record now. We've now got a team of 8 people and A, B, C, D, E, F, G, sign up or see you later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just need to get to a certain point, don't you? And then you can start dictating where you'll go and what you'll take. But initially, if you do have to do it, I'd highly recommend that. I think we've all done it. And it just gives you that social proof, and that brings me on to the next bit, Ian, because you are king social, really. I think James and I probably both knew you way before we actually met you, because you've been so good on social media over the last however many years. So you mentioned social proof when you'd got a couple of sales. So I take it you didn't just put a sold board up and move on to the next one. So what kind of thing did you do?
So we started doing vendor client stories videos quite early on. So the last one I did was probably 6 months ago now, but we've now got 4 or 5 of those on our website. So I used to go and stand with the seller in their garden and interview them about why they use Storeys.
Yeah.
So I've always used Mark, our videographer, to do it professionally. But you could easily do it on an iPhone these days and just sit on a sofa in the kitchen and film it. You know, it'd have a very similar effect. I just wanted it to be polished and to look cool. So Mark's done ours, but I think we've done 5 now. So obviously it's got to be the right sort of client that's happy to be filmed and happy for it to go out publicly. So I went and stood in the garden. I remember doing it with Ruth at Sawton House, which is that first £1 million one that we got. And she'd been on with Savills for 3 years and she was not happy with Savills. And then I've done another one with Steve Donnelly, who we sold the old schoolhouse for in Spurstow. Still in touch with Steve now all the time and the team, really good relationship. He'd been on with Savills for, 6 months or something. So these ones where they've been on with the big boys are not sold and they're using you and paying you more, that is valuable. You know, you want them to stand in their garden and say, how much they think you're worth, what you charge and how good you are. And at the end of the one with Steve, he gave me a hug. Like we went to shake hands and he went in to give me a hug because he'd been so impressed with what we'd done. So no, that's a good tip.
I was just going to say, just on that, before we were talking about hugging, I actually knew before you were kind of Facebook famous, and I'd followed your journey when we were at Perry's boot camp. And I think on the table, you'd sat on the right-hand side, and then to the left of me, there was Nick Cheshire, and then somebody else. I can't remember who that was. I'm not sure if they're still around. But I just remember, like, we're all been in a room. Literally, it's the first time I'd ever done anything like that. I'd never done like a boot camp or a mastermind or anything like that. Because to be honest, my ego kind of thought, well, I'm an agent. I know what I'm doing. But then when I literally was in that room with similar people, like always similar business struggles, and you just, you realise that you don't know it all, and there is loads to learn. And I just remember, like, obviously, I sat next to you. Obviously, I had lunch with you and Al in the restaurant. I remember one lunchtime we were just chatting about. To be honest, I can't remember what we were chatting about. I just remember chatting to you guys, and I just kind of I obviously added you guys on Facebook and followed Nick and a couple of other people that were in the room at the time. And I just remember, like, watching kind of your journey and watching you grow, like, over a period of time. Because I remember you said, you're going to start Storeys up and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, fair play. But you know what it's like, you meet people in rooms like that, and, lots of people do a lot of talking, but not a lot of action. And
yeah,
like, I think it's credit to you guys and credit to you, mate, like how you've literally just almost sprung up from nowhere. And then now, like, again, the power of social media and consistency. Like, there aren't many people. If you're an agent on Facebook, they don't know who you are. So God knows what the people in I think.
Thank you. Yeah, do work hard. Like I did 2 hours this morning work before 7 a.m. before the kids got up, so that my day's already ahead of itself, sort of thing. So yeah, it's hard. It's about hard work, isn't it? But also consistency, like you say. But with a couple of other things to mention to other agents with Storeys was that. So it was obviously we were selective from the start. Always. I styled a home before I knew that home styling was a thing. So I would do it myself. I would be there, like the photographer stood here and I'm there, like moving stuff and tidying it, making sure the table's in line with the lights and doors are open, no toilet rolls, no, all this sort of stuff. Obviously now we've got Vicky, who's our home stylist, and we market it accordingly. But originally it was me doing it all. So we were selective. We styled homes. We always did pro photos. We've always done a video on every single property, a presenter-led video on every single house. Find the money and do it. And then eventually you'll be able to charge marketing fees up front like we do now. I know, like you two do. I have to say I learned quite a lot from Sam and Phil up in the Lakes. They taught me stuff on twilight photographs and a few other bits and pieces. But the bulk of it was in place from the start, really, via Perry Power. And I'll always thank Perry because he really did give me a massive boost.
Confidence, wasn't it? I think the other thing I was just going to say, just before you carry on, is one of the things that stopped me from doing the kind of mid to high end was I always thought I wasn't going to be good enough to do it as a smaller agent, but B, I always had in my head that, well, they're the upper end agents. They've got pro photography. They've got this. They've got that. They've got the branch network. Why would anyone ever choose me? And the reason I'm saying this is that there'll be people listening to this, and people we're speaking to at the moment that are in that kind of mid to low end space that have the ability and have the fundamentals to step up. But it's just a kind of confidence thing. And I think, you mentioned earlier going up against the likes of, Savills in your area or Knight Frank or Jackson Stops and even in my area here. But what I think you've got to get into your head if you're listening to this and you're thinking about doing it is that a lot of these big kind of mammoth kind of corporates that deal in high end, what they were doing 20 years ago was top of their game. And what you need to realize is not a lot has changed in 20 years. They haven't actually got with the times. So, some of them have had their hands forced to change the times because, the likes of Storeys or Burton James or James Kendall are popping up. And they're doing video in inverted commas. But they're just not consistent, and they haven't got the ability to provide that level of service because unique and kind of prestige homes, they need someone like a strong independent to sell their house to maximize the value from someone that cares. It's a bit like, do you want to take your Porsche into Quick Fit or do you want to take your Porsche into the specialist? We are the specialist.
I also think that with the larger companies like Savills, I always say to people, your house is say £1.5 million to Savills. You're nothing.
Yeah.
Because they have thousands of those houses across the world. But to me, you're one of less than 10 at that level. So to me, you are far, far, far more important than a massive company like Savills. I'm sure there's some great people at Savills, but they definitely don't care like I do.
No. And I think you need to get that across. And I think, the estate agent can control three things, can't they, Dave?
Absolutely, mate. Tell us what they are.
Quality of the marketing, the exposure it receives, and the communication.
Lovely.
And if none of those, I can't even speak now because you put me on the spot, but out of all of those things, no one can control the market. But go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing that I think is important for people to know as well is that at Storeys, we don't have a shop. So we get much better fees, we produce much better marketing, we give a much better service to our clients, and we don't have a shop. So there's loads of estate agents. Obviously, most estate agents have a shop. There's a couple of higher end ones in the areas that we cover that have shops. But I would urge anyone, if they're going for it, you don't need a shop. I think it's much, much easier to run an estate agency without a shop because you don't get people coming in. I know you have a shop front, JK, but it's not like you're in a massive high street, is it?
No.
It's more of a contemporary service office type space, isn't it? Yours,
yeah,
which is a bit different. You certainly don't need a high street shop where you've got Jean coming in every Monday to ask you something about a house, which you're never going to buy one. It's just a nightmare. So
most of our stuff, to be fair, like where we are, I was going to say, like, people kind of approach us 15 miles out of our office because of our marketing that we've seen, or we've written to them with direct mail.
Yeah, you've no houses in the window, have you? So you're not like a local estate agent with a shop front.
No.
So I just don't think you need a shop front, and I think it's much, much easier. Like yesterday, I nipped back for something, and Eleanor had nipped out to get a lunch, and she can just lock the office and nip for lunch. It's fine.
Yeah. And just talking about your fees quickly, because a question that I'm sure a lot of people will be keen to ask. So where obviously 2% is kind of, it is what it is now. That's the baseline standard. Obviously, you then introduced recently your upfront fees. Did you get any sort of pushback from anyone on that?
It would be wrong to say no one, but 99% of people, there's no pushback whatsoever. Obviously now, as soon as I've started doing it, I've thought, God, I should have been doing this for bloody ages because people are quite happy to pay it. And I think with the right sort of clients, I went to a valuation on Monday, beautiful, really beautiful house, like a Cheshire brick farmhouse, 1800s farmhouse, all modernised, lovely property. And at the end, when I was speaking to the guy over the table, and the client builds boats, and his mum owns a 300-acre farm, like perfect client. And he said to me, okay, so talk to me about, your fees and a contract and how that would work. So I always say to people, well, we have no tie-in period and we have no notice period. So you've got to keep us on our toes, John, because you could walk away with no penalty tomorrow and there's nothing I can do about it. So I always say that to people before I tell them it's 2%. And he said to me, tell me how much the upfront marketing fee is, because there must be an upfront marketing fee for this level of marketing. So the right client expects to pay it.
Yeah.
But you've got to, obviously, it's got to be worth it to be able to charge for it. So I've even thought, I wonder if I can charge more than £650 to the right kind of house now. But basically, we started last year, and it was Adam Mackay who gave me the inspiration for this, because he'd started doing it. £500 plus VAT up front, non-refundable, and it's not deducted off the fee at the end. So it's a commitment from the seller, because we're going to spend £1,200 on the marketing of your home, John.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'd like some commitment from you, because there's no contract here, there's no tie-in. You could walk away. So I'm going to put my heart and soul into it. I need some commitment from you. So we started at 500 plus VAT. Basically, no kickback at all. The only, generally speaking, if you get a kickback, it's from the lower end. So 400-500 grand houses. It can be a bit different. But Phil is going out there. Is Phil 29 years old? He was shelf stacking in Asda 3 years ago. He's now going out getting 500 plus VAT up front and 2%. So it's definitely possible. So we upped it to 550. And then a couple of weeks ago, I thought, I'm going to put this up to 650 because people are happy to pay it and we deliver a really good level of marketing. So we now charge 650 plus VAT up front and 2% plus VAT on completion. Every now and then we neg, if it's a 1.5 million quid house, we might neg, but generally we don't.
And what sort? I'm just intrigued actually, because in terms of the pushback that you get, because I was having a conversation with some of my guys about this the other day. Like what pushback do you get on the lower end? Like what do people say? Well, I'm not paying that.
Well, yeah, it's just like it's harder to get a higher fee at the lower end, isn't it? If you go into a 100 grand terrace around the corner from us in Winsford, which is a normal kind of working class town, if you go there and try and charge 2% on 100 grand, which will be $2,000, you've got fucking no chance. I would say you've got almost no chance. Like they don't want to. They are transactional. They do.
They don't value what you do.
No, they're correct. If you go to a £1 million house further along, literally 8 minutes drive away, on a £1 million house, they will pay 2% because they understand the value, and that's 20 grand.
Yeah.
So the pushback is from the lower end, just like you'd get pushback on higher fees at the lower end. But if you can position your brand mid to higher end, and you've got to be consistent with the marketing.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a reputation locally. You've got to do a video presenter led on every house. You've got to do twilight photography. You've got to do pro photography, staging, styling, have the team, pre-styling meetings, all this sort of stuff. But if you do it, so therefore you are adding the value, people will pay because it's worth it for them.
Yeah.
A lot of the people as well at the higher end of the market.
And other people are paying it as well. They'll just assume that everyone else is just paying it as well because, you've got social proof. You've got the photos on the table. You've got, they might have seen a house through you. They're getting the direct mail from you to say, look, this is what we're doing. You're educating them. You are the expert in the area. So once you've got the social proof down.
Yeah, you're right about the noms. They're not on the market letters that we send. That's a very valid point. I think I told this story in the podcast last week, so I won't dwell on it, but I met a guy outside a house last week. And he's got a really nice house, really nice village, probably £1 million, 2%, but he's been getting our letters. So already in his mind, we're positioned as the voice of authority.
Yeah.
So you might not, you might not get a direct call from your long form market update letters, but they are getting them, and the right client, they are definitely reading them. So when the time comes to sell, you're already positioned higher than other agents locally, way higher. Way higher.
And I think just on the fee, lads, as well, it is at the higher end of the market. You're dealing with sort of entrepreneurs, high-level executives. The time poor. So when you're offering them the pre-styling appointment, the actual home styling appointment itself, professional everything, etc., they really buy into that because it helps them. It doesn't make you and their property look good. It really helps them. So they are prepared to pay more for that.
Yeah.
It's like having a cleaner.
Well, they want to be lifting the stalls around and like the dog bowls. And I mean, in fairness, the house I launched last week, we were a little bit time poor, and I gave them a massive list of stuff to move out of their house before we come around and do bits. Move wardrobes around. The daughter, bless her, like teenage daughter, absolutely hates me because all the posters have gone in her room. She's got all these fake plants pinned to the wall. Like it was just literally classic teenage girl's bedroom, and I said, look, I don't know how you're going to sell this to her, but if you want to buy this other house and get yours on for top price, this is what you need to do. Gave them a list, walked around the house with them and said, look, this is what you need to do. Literally and I managed to get a cancellation for our photographer as well. So within 2 days, everything was either in the loft, in the garage, and the liquor paint had been in the daughter's bedroom. But then the proof's in the pudding. Did 4 back-to-back viewings on the house yesterday afternoon. And we've got multiple offers above the offers over price. So, and
then they love you, and then they'll tell all the friends.
Yeah.
The amount of ones I've been to where I remember Lynn, the one I spoke about earlier on, that door knocks at the very start, she had bunting up, and I said, Lynn, you've got to take down your bunting, and she loved it because she sewed it all herself, and it just looked a bit like a caravan.
Yeah.
And she had a lovely kitchen.
Yeah.
I said, Lynn, you've got to take down your bunting, and she still talks about that now.
Yeah.
But you know what? He made me take down my bunting. And we do it to people with cushions. And they all talk about it to their friends when they go for their nice meal at the local restaurant. They'll go, do you know what Ian Storey told me? He told me to move all my cushions off that. They're the sort of things they talk about.
All the people in Bury are going, all those people in Bury are going, you're no longer selling your house. You're selling your neighbour's next house in a Scottish accent.
In Glasgow.
Where are you? Where are you?
Where am I? Yeah, I've gone to Scotland. Right. So
Ian,
I think we've finished, haven't we? Now, is there anything else to?
I just want to check, Ian. Obviously, it's a great story, and it's a fantastic brand you've got, and I think you are inspirational for a lot of people listening. What are your plans? What are your final plans moving forward for Storeys?
On one hand, I'm ambitious. On the other hand, I've got such a good business here now, which gives us a good standard of living, which I'm keen to not dilute. So I've got a great team. I've really brought Phil through the ranks, who's now going out listing as well. Aidan, Vic, Eleanor, Hol. We've got such a good team that on the one hand, I want to expand. On the one hand, I don't, Dave. So I think if it happens, it'll just happen organically because I'll come across the right person who I think is able to do what we do. But I have no plans to particularly massively expand it because I've tried that before, and it can damage your brand so easily. And if you've got a good standard of living, hey, you're only here once, aren't you? I'm 43 years old this year, and I want to be sat on my boat in the Mediterranean in less than 12 years' time. So on my current trajectory, I can do that without expanding Storeys. So I like going out. I like holidays. So as it stands, I'm quite comfortable.
I figured you'd say that, and I think it's just a great lesson for other people as well. Thinking of setting up that if you get it right, you can do that. You don't have to have multiple branches. We talked briefly then about having serviced office over High Street. I won't dwell on this too much. I know we're time poor now, but I just actually think that one of the advantages to having a serviced office is that you can say we've done that and position ourselves in a certain position, a certain place here, because it enables us to cover a wide area without being pigeonholed in one. So, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think you can grow an extremely good lifestyle business from one office if you target the right properties, do the things we've talked about over the last however many months as we've been doing this podcast. And I think there's been a couple of nuggets to come from your story today. And I think that starting getting out of town, get a few listings on, make sure you do it properly, that kind of thing. I think that'll pay dividends.
I think one thing to mention there, Dave, is that a lot of people will look at me and will go, "Oh, you're in Cheshire. You've got all you live in an area where all the expensive houses are." So yes, we do. But I was speaking to an agent in Scotland on Facebook. I think it was last week, the week before, and he was saying, "Oh, we're in an area where the average fees, 0.75%, and the average property price is 180 grand or whatever." I thought, "Oh, okay, fair enough." I said, "Have you done a Rightmove search within 10 miles at 500 grand plus and seen how many houses there are on the market or sold STC?" And I did that. I got his postcode off his website and I did that search on Rightmove, and there was something like 300 houses within 10 miles of his office over 500 grand.
Yeah.
So I think anybody can do this.
Yeah.
You've just got to think outside the box. I hate that term. You got to think outside the area slightly.
I think the thing is, just to cap that, you've got to think you can as well. Because if you think you can't, you're right.
James.
If you think you can, you're probably right as well. So, yeah, totally, mate. Totally. Right. Well, that brings it to a close for another week. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for joining me as usual, guys. It's always been a pleasure. And which we'll look forward to entertaining and educating you next week.
Love it. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys.